need consent to develop a project. There needs to be ability to adapt the range and the size and the number of square metres going to different aspects over time, and that's what you would think would be a good thing.
Oh, absolutely, and it could be an entire sector that would need to change. You may, for example, have a hotel that's not going to work in the short to medium term, and replacing that with another activity might be better for the centre, or it might be something more minor, such as a slight adjustment to the size of one of the stores. And those sorts of changes would obviously take time and cost money, particularly if it was a more challenging resource consent. If there was a zone that was aligned with that type of centre, it would be a more streamlined process. So if a particular tenant was interested in establishing in the centre and they had particular requirements, and this could be retail or entertainment or accommodation, for example, then the centre could respond to that need in a timely manner, and that tenant would be more likely to establish in that centre.
Thank you. Top of your second page of your summary, and this is where you're saying you put the CBDs in pretty good heart with those increases. Have you, when you talk about the CBD, have you differentiated between growth in the CBD core and growth in the CBD fringe, where there has been a lot of development? So in terms of you lump them all together, is there a granular story to be told here?
I haven't split that out for this assessment, but I would consider the CBD in total to be the most useful geographic area for understanding how it's performing. There may be more sites in the middle and outer parts of the CBD that are suitable for redevelopment, just given what's existing on those properties, and that may be driving more growth there, or there may be more demand for multiple level office building in a central location near cafes and restaurants, and that may be driving demand there. So there's swings and roundabouts in that regard, but in terms of how the CBD is functioning over time, if it's growing at that rate, an increase of 35% in retail stores and an increase of 1,300 office and retail workers over the past 5 years, I would conclude quite comfortably that it's doing quite well.
As a whole, the CBD is defined as a whole. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, my last question relates to where I think you interpolated some comments after the third paragraph on that page, something along the lines that a new centre like your client's proposing will actually perhaps benefit the CBD over time, because CBD would need to respond, and that would, in the cycle of development, be inevitable or likely to happen. Is that correct? How you interpolated that comment?
Yes, so that's quite common. If you have a new shopping mall enter the market, the surrounding centres will tend to see an increase in investment to level the playing field. So a new shopping centre will have nice architecture, some of the most recent amenities and so on, and they may compete with a centre that's been there for 5, 10, 15 years, which doesn't have that same level of architecture. So those existing centres will tend to have additional investment so that they can level the playing field a bit and compete with that new centre. So there's a few examples which I can provide to demonstrate that, but in terms of how the CBD would respond, that would be my expectation, is if there's additional competition, there would be a need for more investment, and that doesn't need to be restricted just to private sector. There's obviously some public sector investment that can come along at that point as well.
Certainly for me, those examples would be very helpful in terms of the life cycle of these centres and how they come and go. So I would appreciate some examples you could provide as a supplementary piece.
Sure.
And I'm not sure whether the urban myths of where Tauranga City Centre and the Hamilton City Centre sort of stand at the moment. They've been through a cycle of competition, I suppose. So any comment you'd like to provide with those centres?
Yeah, sure. So when the base was built, that was obviously a new development of interest in terms of retail effects from a planning perspective. The CBD had vacancies of around 5%. Just from memory, the CBD had vacancies of around 5% and it increased to 10 or 11% for about 5-6 years, and then has come back down to 5 or 6%. So you obviously have a new centre come into the market. There's additional competition. Some of the stores that are a bit marginal in the surrounding existing centres, or the CBD in that case, have closed down. But then as the market has increased in size with new population and additional retail spend, the existing centre, or the CBD in that case, has come back, and the vacancies are back down to where they were. So possibly if you went back through some of the economic reports when the base was being proposed, there would have been some doom and gloom predictions about what would happen to the CBD, and that hasn't played out at all. It's really just been 5 or 6 or 7 years where it was on the back foot a little, and it's bounced right back. And CBDs obviously are moving away from retail to a range of other things, more so now with more residential and more cafes and restaurants and things like that. So it's easier for them to bounce back in response to that competition. Tauranga CBD, Tauranga is a bit different. It's geographically unusual. It has quite a few areas of water, and that's really what's driving the location of centres in Tauranga, in my view. You have quite a different situation in New Plymouth, where it's, you really have just a large area of land that's accessible in all directions. So I wouldn't expect that same sort of situation to play out in New Plymouth, where you have new centres establishing in these new residential growth areas, essentially to service that new population in areas which is quite far away from the existing CBD or the existing urban area.
The new Papamoa Centre in that context, it's just too far from CBD.
Yeah, that's right. Taurika is the same. It's quite a distance from the CBD, and there's a lot of residential growth in both of those areas. So that's really what's driving the demand for those centres. You wouldn't expect people in Taurika or Papamoa to drive to the CBD to access their day-to-day retail goods and services. So it's that unusual geography in Tauranga's case that has created a network of centres that are all approximately the same size, 30, 40, 50,000 square metres. Whereas when you have a more conventional city like New Plymouth, you'll have a CBD which is quite large, and then you'll have a series of smaller centres around it. So there will be quite a distinction in terms of centre size in a place like New Plymouth.
Right, so that's my last question. So thank you very much, everyone, for hanging in here. It's been a long day, and it's needed a fair bit of stamina, and I appreciate that. Many of you have been hanging on the end of the Zoom for a while, so that's pretty tiring. So I'd like to give my thanks to everyone. And just to confirm what's happening tomorrow, we will start at 8:30 in the morning, and we'll start with you, Ms. Barry Pacino, to go through your legal submissions.
Yes, thank you, sir.
And then we will return to the staff on these matters, seeing Mr. Oliver here. So we'll have to perhaps alert some of the other submitters. We will be running behind time a bit, but we'll try and make that up. So thank you very much, everyone. And on that note, we'll go and have Ms. Barry Pacino.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to confirm that from Mr. Thompson, you seek 2 bits. Oh, well, actually, Mr. Littlejohn also, just from my witnesses. Blue Haven will send you through a copy of the land use consent. And I thought also the economic report that was sent through as part of that, which was one of the supporting documents. There was a lot of section 92s and different information, but we're happy to provide that as one comprehensive set. But I think the most important would be just the land use consent. And if you'd like the landscape visual or the economic assessment, please advise. The second and third things were from Mr. Thompson, one being the analysis of international definitions of sub-regional centres that was discussed. And the third aspect was Mr. Thompson, if he has some form of empirical evidence or report related to the centres sort of waxing and waning, if you like, in terms of recovery. Does that sum up the additional? Right, okay.
That's perfect. And yes, so thank you very much for that summary, which encapsulates that.
All right. Thank you, sir. We'll see you in the morning.
Yes, we'll see everyone bright and bushy-tailed in the morning. Thank you.